time when wargamers played with chainmail, and the rise of the wizards of the coast. There was an age of gamers. And unto this, Gygax, destined to bear the crown jewel of TSR upon a troubled brow, to show you all how to roll for initiative.
Issue 62 of the Roll for Initiative podcast. This is volume number 2. Sitting in with me today, as usual, I am DM Vince. I'm sitting with myself, yes. And DM Nick.
Hello.
Coming aboard as a fill-in this week, and hopefully further weeks, DM Will.
Hey there.
And as a special guest appearance, I should say RFI, WGPRN family's own author and acclaimed writer, Tracy Hickman.
Hello, everybody. It's good to be back.
We love having you here.
Thanks. I love being anywhere.
So, Nick, what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Well, not a whole lot, really, as far as the gaming situation is concerned. Didn't do any gaming last weekend. But, we talked about before we started the show, got me reviewing my notes on the whole Underdark stuff that my friend Jeff and I were working on, so... just maybe get the creative juices flowing again. It's been, sitting, lounging in my computer for a couple of years now before I had done any work on it. So I think it's about time I need to do a little bit more. So hopefully it'll see the light of day.
We'd love to see it.
Yeah, I'll have to put it out there.
And, Will, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into gaming, and so people can get familiar with your voice.
Okay, well, it's real easy. My sister started gaming back in the early 60s. She's a long-time gamer. She got me into D&D. Actually, it was chainmail in the early 70s, and then from there on, it just progressed there on. I love the game so much, went to basic and then expert and first edition, second edition, 3.5, and now it's the Pathfinder. That's where I'm at right now these days. Well, besides that, she was big time in miniature games, so now I also do a lot of miniature games, BattleTech, Starfleet Battles, you name it, and any board game in the world made, I will play it.
I heard at Gen Con you were running about 18 games at one point, weren't you?
That is correct. I had 17 board game events. Luckily, I had someone help me run those events. That was a very hectic schedule. I wish I had a chance to meet everyone there, but I didn't.
Yeah, you can't meet everybody. It's very hard. So, and Tracy, what have you been up to since I last saw you at Gen Con?
Since Gen Con?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I went to Dragon Con since Gen Con. And,
how was that?
Oh, it was amazing. Actually, it was for me, it was the best Dragon Con that I've ever attended. We did a killer breakfast at Dragon Con this year and drew a really big crowd, which was amazing because we were opposite William Shatner's appearance and Doctor Who's appearance. And, that people would actually come and play in our game when they could be off listening to the Shat. I mean, hey, come on. That was great.
Did anybody do a Shatner death in the Killer Breakfast since Shatner was nearby?
Everyone did a Shatner death at Killer Breakfast. You couldn't avoid doing a Shatner death at Killer Breakfast. It was actually fabulous because we had Richard Garriott, who's an old friend of mine. And you may remember him as Lord British from the Ultimate Games, and and more recently he's been doing a lot of MMO things. But he was at the convention and he came to our Killer Breakfast since he used to play in our Killer Breakfast 25 years ago, and helped us out with the opening. I mean, it's really cool because Richard Garriott since then has paid for the big ticket and flown to the International Space Station. So, I'm kind of like having an astronaut in my game. It was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Actually, it's a little known fact that both my wife and I have our DNA on the International Space Station.
Wow.
Because Richard took it up there for us. So our DNA is in orbit. And if anything catastrophic happens to the planet and aliens happen to find the International Space Station and aliens find our DNA on the space station and decide to reconstitute the humanity, it'll be me and my wife. Actually, there were a number of other
factors have
GNAs
to
that
come
were.
into play there.
Yeah. Actually, I'm thinking that the actual odds on that are a little long, but
You never know.
but hey, you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that and found out that it's also a little known fact that while Richard was on the International Space Station, he filmed a movie that I wrote, and then subsequently edited for him when he returned from space. And so we actually have created the first science fiction movie actually made in space.
Huh.
Wow.
So yeah, Smithsonian's interested in that one. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks for that.
So you wanted to know what I've been up to since then. The truth, what I've actually been working on since then is I'm writing a Batman novel for DC Comics.
Oh yeah, remember you were talking about that last time.
Wayne of Gotham.
Yeah, I've been looking forward for that.
Yeah, it is really a solid book. I'm so excited about this book, and been working on that and trying to honor the legacy of Batman and all of the different iterations of Batman down over the years, and that's been an interesting journey. So I've been writing the Batman book. We've been doing our online serial book Black Shore at dragonsbard.com. You got to come and check that out because the only place you can get it is from me. And in addition, we've started up our writing seminars, and that's been going really well. The online writing seminars.
Oh yeah, that was such a great deal too. You get that. It's like a class package, and you get to work with you and your wife and how to becoming a proper author.
Well, we primarily like to teach people story and the structure of story and how to create a story that is solid and really works. And we have, in addition, of course, to the actual writing of it, and we're very much into new media. As we tell our authors, it's not about being published anymore. It's about being read.
Yes.
It's all about finding your audience and speaking to them.
Good point. Very good point.
Yeah, that's a very total good point. Structure of a story is so important these days with all these adventures that are being released and even in books, what have you. Yes, structure is very important. Good note.
Yeah, it is, and it speaks to everybody. And so we spend a lot of our time dealing with the structure of story and making sure that the story that you're telling is solid and is going to connect with your audience. Especially today, that's important because with new media publishing, I mean, anybody can get published. The real question is whether you have a story that's going to hold an audience, and that's what we want. That's what we're trying to teach people. The coolest thing about the seminars actually is that people not only have the lessons online, which my wife and I have created ourselves, but because I run the forum on this seminar site. You have access directly to me in terms of your writing, and I will help you directly in terms of what you're writing. So, yeah, that part actually been very exciting. I've been seeing a lot of really good new writers coming up through that, and it's very encouraging for me to see that.
I know. I just couldn't imagine writing something and handing it into you or your wife to read. I'd be like, be nervous.
Oh, listen, that's the best, actually, because we don't tell anybody how ugly your baby is. And and it's true. People worry about here's my child. I've been working on this story for 10 years, and I'm going to hand it over to you, and I want you to tell me it's beautiful. I want you to tell me that it's perfect and it's sweet, and the truth is you really don't want that. What you want is someone who will tell you your baby's ugly and why your baby is ugly. Because the truth, sadly enough, because if you send this child into the world is not going to care.
Yeah.
And you want to make your baby pretty before the world tells you otherwise.
True.
So this is why we love editors. I think it was a wonderful quote that I use all the time. I have to paraphrase it, but it's we write from the heat of passion, but we edit to see the fire through the smoke.
Wow.
And that is what we're all about is to help help our authors in our writing seminars be able to find the fire through all the smoke.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I've been unbelievably busy trying to keep all of these.
I was going to say you've been busy doing some interesting stuff, to say the least.
Well, yeah, and I've got the third novel in the Dracus series that I need to write this fall and winter, as well as finishing the Batman book. And then we're looking forward to the spring to new projects then. So we're dancing as fast as we can here.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I still want to do games, so yeah, we'll find time for that somewhere.
Yeah,
somewhere along the line, you're going to find some time for gaming. Sleep? Who needs that, right?
Yeah, well, not when there's fun stuff. I mean, I just my good friends over at Fantasy Flight Games, for example, just sent me the Dragon expansion for Talisman.
Oh.
And so I'm really excited to bust that out. And they also sent me a copy of their Gears of War board game. And as soon as I have like 10 minutes of my own, that baby is so coming out of the box.
Just enough time to look at it.
Well, yeah, I steal what time I can. Last night, yesterday, for example, I put in a 15-hour day.
Whoa.
And my chairs in my office just really isn't that comfortable, guys. Seriously.
We'll get you a new chair.
Okay. Well, and the problem yesterday was my wife and I were writing a new chapter for our online Blackshore book, and we needed to get it posted that night, and so. Yeah, and it was a really wonderful chapter. I was really happy with how it turned out. But it was, we were posting it at 10:15 at night. So it's just the reality, I think, of the age in which we live. It's the reality of the new market that we're struggling to adapt to.
Nice. Okay, cool.
I wanted to, bring up something that Mr. Hickman brought up with Fantasy Flight Games, since I'm a big board gamer. I'm going to tell you, that is a solid company right there. If you really want to get some good board games, and I mean, they're really hardcore and making some good quality games out there.
Yeah, they do. They've got tremendous, what I call toy quality.
Yeah.
They have lots of toys, and I want a game with lots of toys in it. I just really do. In fact, I actually wrote for them. Just earlier this month, actually, they released a novel that I did for them called Fireborn, Embers of Atlantis, which was a novel that I wrote for them in their Fireborn universe. It's an urban fantasy, which is new for me. I haven't written urban fantasy before. It was a lot of fun, but that just came out, and I also wrote a scenario for them for their Mansions of Madness. And was able to do some fun things with the components in that one that they hadn't thought of doing before.
Now that's interesting. I would like to know about that because I own Mansions of Madness and I demo it at the board game conventions as much as possible. So is this something that hasn't been released yet?
I think they were going to release it as one of their downloadables. I don't know. I don't know exactly how they were going to be doing it, but it's a great little adventure. Because it takes place in Hollywood, and it's all about going to a movie premiere party at this mansion, and it's all bound up with the elder and trying to push their way into the world through a mechanism of this projector that they have there that's running this movie. And they've got
creepy.
Oh, it's great. So you go and we actually built into it ghosts of the people who were phasing in and out of this party, this Hollywood party. And I was just really happy with how it turned out. It was a lot of fun. So you want to look for that. I'm not sure exactly how they're releasing that or when they're releasing that, but. Cool. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. You go in and the movie is playing in the great room. It's called the chapel, but they've turned it into a movie theater. And depending on which scenario you're playing, the movie plays out differently in the theater. So it's I think you'll really like that one.
That's very good. Well, I'll be looking forward, and I'll play it a couple times, and then I will give you my critique.
Yes, please do. Absolutely. Tell me my baby's ugly. I can do.
Jeez. Okay, cool. So RFI has been nominated for a Golden Pawn Award. It's this through the Gaming Genius Awards, where they nominated us for a Golden Pawn Award. I've never heard of the award before, and I apologize to them, but I think this is a new award that's been in the making, and we made it in. So they're going to announce by the time this podcast comes out, we should know if we actually won or not. It's going to be awarded in Montreal Comic-Con 2011.
Oh, please, oh, please, oh, please, oh, please, oh, please, oh, please.
Hey, it's just an honor to be nominated because so many people throw their podcasts in there, and just like the Emmy Awards, if you make it to the nomination round, that's just an honor in itself.
I agree.
This is completely unrelated, but I was once nominated, or I was forwarded for a Grammy.
A Grammy?
I know. It's hard to believe, isn't it?
What did you sing?
Well, I sing baritone.
Oh.
But what actually, it was, of all things, it was for the Dragonlance movie soundtrack.
Well, it was a good soundtrack, though. Which
is an awesome soundtrack. Yeah. Seriously, I have always said that the Dragonlance movie is the best radio play ever put on DVD.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. If you can turn off the monitor, it sounds fabulous. It's a fabulous experience. But I was actually forwarded for a Grammy nomination on that one, because I wrote Elven lyrics to the Elven hymn that was part of that, and so I've always thought that was another strange fact about me. But I think frankly, you guys have got a much better shot at the Pawn Award than I had at a Grammy.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate
and I support you in this, absolutely.
Excellent. Just send them an email saying, I'm Tracy Hickman and I support this podcast, and we'll win. That's all we need. Just your word.
Yes, because we all know, of course, that my word and $1 will buy you a large drink at McDonald's.
Wait, we can get a large drink at McDonald's?
For $1 and my word, yes.
Really? Cool.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Forums. We are up and jumping in the forums, and we changed the theme. People have been donating to the forums to help improve it and giving us feedback, so we're happy about that.
We should probably let everybody know that on the forums we made an announcement about a particular DM screen.
How would you know about that, Nick? You're never on the forums.
Yeah, I was on there today.
Yes, as promised for the past, I don't know what year now.
I think, yeah.
We finally, well, I should say I finally stepped up and produced a Dungeon Master's, well, I should say a Game Master's screen for compatible with First Edition. We'll say that. And
you mean the good game?
Yes, the good game.
Yes, that one, exactly.
And you can find it by going to the osrgaming.org forums, and there'll be a link there in the announcement section. And I'll get the exact link. I'll say it on the air, but no one's going to be able to follow it because it'd be too difficult to follow it on the air. It is osrgaming /main/products.html, and then you can see the screen right there. And it's a pretty cool looking screen that we had someone draw up for us, and it has the basics of what you need to play any First Edition type game.
Yes. It's made out of wonderfully thick cardboard. Enough,
It's not cardboard, actually. It's a stronger material than cardboard. It's almost like the material they use for the modern...
Adamantium?
Yeah, adamantium, yeah.
Titanium.
The board, the GM screens they use today for that material, it's like step below that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So if you fold it up and whack a player on the head, if they're a little unruly player, it'll still hold up.
Yeah, it'll still hold up. This will hold up.
I gotta get myself
one. It has what you need on there, and just to give you a basic rundown, it has all the class attack matrix, the armor chart, creatures struck by only magical weapons, character monster saves, monster attack matrix, missile fire concealment chart, thief function table with climb ability, encounter reaction, morale, invisibility detection, spell recovery timetable, and a quick healing spell reference chart.
And
that could be yours
psionics.
for no psionics. Oof, no.
Yes, we didn't waste like a whole other thing with psionics that nobody
is
used
such
anyway.
a relief. Thank you.
Oh, no, I use psionics now. I mean, that's the purpose of having mind flayers and intellect devourers and all those other good monsters. Psionics do have a place.
I told you, Will uses all the good stuff that we don't use, apparently. And right now, it's being offered for an introductory price of $11 plus $3 shipping in the United States only. Ooh. For now. So if you want to get a hold of one, we only have 20 right now, and it's going like hotcakes. So I don't know if they'll be still around by this time the podcast gets out. So if you're one of the lucky ones that spotted on Facebook or spotted on the forums or on Dragon's Foot, then you're lucky. You probably already have one.
Yes, order your new DM screen now. Tinker Gnomes are standing by.
Yes, and we will get more. We just only ordered a certain amount just because we weren't sure who wanted them and who didn't want them. It's better to order a little amount than order like 100,000 and have like 4 people buy it. Then I'd be like Al Bundy with all the shoes in his house going, what am I going to do with all these shoes? When the meter maid contract falls through. Anyway.
That's too funny.
So, Nick, what do we got for stars?
For stars, we do have one new review over at iTunes.
Yay.
And this is from Frankie Green Jeans.
Okay.
And Frankie Green Jeans says, good, with 5 stars. And
like Casey
he says, these guys rock. I have tried many gaming podcasts over the last few years and get tired of most of them in a very short period of time. I've been with these guys from close to the beginning and still look forward to the show every week. Yes, they could be more prepared at times. Yes, they could not talk over each other, but listening to the podcast is like an actual gaming session. It's also nice to be reminded how cool Dragon Magazine was back in the day. Keep up the good work.
We don't talk over each other, do we?
No, I don't know. Do we talk over each other? I don't think so.
Well, thank you for that.
Yes, thank you, Frankie Green Jeans. And anybody else, if you want to give us a review, head on over to iTunes and type in at the iTunes store, search Roll for Initiative, and you can click on the link from there. Also, you can contact us at rfistaff@gmail.com.
Oh, my God, Nick got it right this week.
I know, because I read it right off the screen at iTunes.
Oh, okay.
Cheater.
Yeah, cheater.
Yes, I cheated.
Do you know the voice number?
No.
Let's head into
hotline?
Yeah, so let's head into...
Wait a minute. Yes, I do. I have it right here. It's 570-865-4210 for the RFI hotline.
That's right, hotline. We're standing by. So let's head into Sage
Tinker
Advice.
Gnomes are standing by.
Because we have a couple emails and a voicemail.
Oh, cool. We do have a voicemail. Excellent.
Yeah. Master, they're at the gates again. Master, it looks like another band of adventurers.
Adventurers again? Always the same. Coming to me for sage advice.
For Sage Advice this week, we're going to start off with the voicemail, so everyone just give a mute on your microphones and we'll just play the voicemail.
Greetings, this is Full On Gamer from Thaco's Hammer and D20 Radio. On your last podcast, you had some very unkind things to say about Night Below regarding its railroadiness. I'm sorry, I have to say something. 1, we will cover Night Below when we do it in Thaco's Hammer. 2, as far as railroad goes, you have an adventure. It has a beginning, it has an end. You have to get from here to there. The adventure gives you lots of ways to deal with what's going on around you at the time and choices. However, if the beginning of your module is at the surface and the end of your module is 5 miles underground, 120 miles away, there's generally going to be one general way to get there. If the adventure deals with going into the Underdark and dealing with a threat, and your party would rather head off to Luskan or go into the wilds of the woods and stay there or look for something else, they aren't playing the adventure. Even in your home campaigns, if you write a beginning and an end, you have a railroad. I'm sorry, it's the truth. So, when you deal with an adventure, yes, you give them choices. You give them general guidance in the direction they want to go. And if they're going to go completely off the rails and break your campaign, well, then they're going to go off the rails and break your campaign. But you have to deal with it as the DM. Players will do what they're going to do, but part of the covenant between the players and the DMs to have fun is to kind of do what is laid before them. That doesn't mean you're a slave to the railroad. It just means you're going to do the adventure, not suddenly decide, I'd rather go outer planar. I'd rather go deal with dragons. I'd rather go deal with giants. I'd rather go look for anything other than the plot that is laid before me. This is Full On Gamer, finishing my rant. I'll talk at you later.
You made Full On Gamer mad. You made him mad, Nick.
Well,
let's hand the microphone over to Nick.
Where do I even start with that?
yeah, this is all my fault.
Yeah, Nick. We're going to hand the microphone over to Nick now to comment on behalf of RFI Podcast.
I'm sorry, when I was muted, I was just like laughing. I was just like, Vince before the show was like, you started something with on Echo's Hammer. I go, with what? He goes, we were talking about Night Below. I'm like, what? Because it's a railroad kind of adventure? I mean, I haven't known anybody who hasn't said otherwise, apparently. He says otherwise. So, I don't know. I mean, to each their own. I mean, yes, you have a beginning, middle, and end, but...
Well, excuse me.
Yeah.
But...
Go ahead, Tracy.
I just wrote a book with my son called XDM, Extreme Dungeon Mastery. Extreme Dungeon Mastery. And the reason that we wrote this is precisely for what this guy's talking about. And that is, we figured out back in the 1980s how to conduct an adventure, a story adventure that was not a railroad. And we actually talk about it in this book. And we give diagrams, pictures with small words so that people will understand the concept. A railroad is a linear structure, right? Yeah. And railroads are great if you're doing a tournament because you just measure how far before somebody dies and whoever gets further wins.
Tournaments have to be that way, or
they have to be that way, and that's understandable.
You don't know how to eliminate people, exactly.
Right? And we've all played Candyland, so we know how that works. And at the same time, you've got, you have the open campaign where, it's all free and we can go anywhere that we want. Yeah, it's the sandbox mode, and we all understand how that works. And if you have type 2 players, if you have social players, you all put them in a tavern and you get them talking to each other in character, and then you go out for pizza because they'll be there when you get back, and that's okay. Yeah. But there's a third way to handle this, which is a directed matrix, and this is a place where you do have a beginning, but then you let the characters explore the area of the adventure itself, and then find direction within the adventure to continue and flow on.
It's kind of a hybrid between the two in a way.
It is. It's a hybrid between the two, and it's a branching matrix that brings you down to a number of different endings, but it's manageable within the setting. It has this beautiful illusion of the eternal horizon, the infinite horizon, while still keeping adventurers within the confines of the adventure itself. You do not have to grab people by the nose and drag them through an adventure just because you want to get them from point A to point Z.
Tracy,
there are better ways to do that.
That's a good point. How you said gives the illusion of broad horizons, but yet they are still within the confines of this scenario, this adventure, this plot.
Yeah,
it's almost like how it's almost like parenting in a way. Because I have children, and I say, kids could do whatever you want in this space.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
see,
true.
now, that is true, and then I believe Mr. Hickman is correct. As I stated before on the forum, that I have a 15-part campaign, all designed by myself. But within the campaign, I have about 12.5 to 24 first edition, second edition modules in between, so that allows the players, to diverse and be flexible. Now, Mr. Hickman did bring up one point. I use a flow chart. If the players go to this, they can go here and here. If they go to this point, they can go here, here, and here. But regardless, it's still going to funnel back down to the eventual goal.
You kind of follow what Tracy was talking about.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
It's actually, we give this advice actually about a lot of things. I give this advice about a lot of things. I give this advice about how people should hang on to their outlines, for example. And in general, it's good advice anyway, but it also applies to this as well. And that is that a proper adventure, at least in my mind, should be handled the same way that you hold a handful of marbles. And that is, you can either grab those marbles and squeeze them tightly to try to force them to do what you want them to do, in which case you got marbles flying all over the place and you lose your marbles. Or you can hold your hand open, just flat, and pour marbles onto it, and let them go wherever they want to go. And you end up, again, losing all your marbles. But if you hold your hand in a form, a structure, right, that defines the edges of where the marbles can go, a cup out of your fingers, and you put the marbles in there, they will settle naturally into the form, but they don't get out of the form, and you manage to hang on to your marbles. And that's the way I think an adventure should be structured. That's the way it should be run by the DM, is that you have the form of the adventure, and then you let the players settle naturally inside the form. Yeah. And that's where everybody gets the enjoyment, I think, within the game without busting outside the walls.
Yes.
Now, with that being said, does Night Below, that adventure, basically a mini campaign in itself, does it follow that form? I don't know.
Well, it's easy to say that. I can tell you right now it doesn't really, because, again, I'm going to pick on Mr. Hickman again because I love this bit. Ravenloft, I-6. I'm sorry, I-6 was a railroad module. However, now that they released the Ravenloft setting and that whole campaign background, now you can run that module and run with it. Now you have a whole demi-plane to work with. So that's how I look at it right now.
Ever so much easier when you don't have, 64 pages that you have to deal with.
True. All right, let's get on to some of the emails there. So, Full On Gamer, there. Take that. Mike writes in and asks, I've always run a thief let's start that again. I always run a thief. However, after a while in a campaign around levels 3 or 4, I become either useless to my party or bored. Is there anything I could do to make the thief class more fun? Also, can you explain the other non-basic things about them? That's kind of a general question. Who wants to take that one?
Let's see. I don't know. Backstab. Hello.
Yeah, I know.
You got that backstab attack. You get behind the enemies of the party. I mean, you become a real crucial part of a battle, for one.
Unless it's a frost giant.
I know this is going to come as a surprise to you guys, but I do have an opinion on this.
Go for it.
The reason that thief characters so often become boring is because the referee does not play ethics within the body of the game. The whole thrill of being a thief is to be disruptive, to be counter-cultural, counter-societal, right? And if all you're doing is, we used to tell the story, this story in our seminars. You have a thief, and he goes into town, and he walks up to somebody and says, "Well, where's the richest part of town?" "Well, if you turn right and go down 3 blocks, that's the richest part of town." So the thief goes down the richest part of town, finds this really good-looking house, and he uses his lock-picking abilities. He breaks in the door, finds, that the room's full of treasure, and then steals the treasure. This isn't very exciting. This is boring.
Yeah, it's boring.
No wonder the thief is boring. The excitement for the thief has to come in an ethical world, because you have to have things like, this guy's a thief. There's going to be guards in the city, and they're going to be looking out for this. The citizens of the town aren't going to take kindly to people stealing from them, and so he's going to be an outcast, and they're not going to deal with him the same way. If he is...
like thieves guilds, for example, they generally don't work openly in the public. You have to find out where they are in the town.
Well, exactly. It's not like they have the pancake breakfast every
right. They're not the Shriners.
They're not the Shriners. It's the thieves guild here. And if the citizens of the town actually knew where it was, they'd burn it to the ground.
Probably.
Yeah. So the reason I think people have problems when they play the thief class is because the DM isn't willing to impose upon the thief the very thing that makes being a thief exciting and interesting. Yeah, and that is that that they are fighting a world that really doesn't want them to do what they're doing.
I think that's a good point when you talk about like the ethics of being a thief. Also, I guess more mechanics wise, in a game mechanics sense. I know I've been guilty of this, and I think maybe other DMs have been too. We get kind of lackadaisical when we plan adventures, and we don't necessarily plan out things that are necessarily put a thief to task all the time. Like making complex traps or complex riddles.
Well, it's true.
And there is kind of a curve to that, because when a thief gains more experience, generally those sorts of things get easier. So as a DM, I know at least on the DM side of the screen, it becomes a little bit more difficult to plan those sorts of things too.
Well, I think we actually get too bound up in the rules.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the whole problem that we have now with, I don't know, what edition are we up to now? 5.7 or I can't remember.
I don't know.
6, I think?
I've lost count. And the problem is that the later editions have become more and more rules heavy to the point where we have abandoned the roots of role playing to begin with. I don't mean to be a Luddite about this whole thing, but we have forgotten why these games were fun. To begin with. I used to play Traveler ages ago. We used to refer to it as accountants in space. It was the only role-playing game I knew of that you could die during the creation process.
Yeah. Character creation, yes.
Which you got to admit is pretty cool. But we've gotten to the point where we're more worried about rolls of the dice than rolls that we play. And the fact is that if you want to play a thief, it has to be balanced by something, or it's no longer interesting. We like to say in writing that heroes are made by the villains that they fight. And if you do not have a great villain, then you are never going to make a great hero.
So
that's true of the thief too. If the thief doesn't have somebody countering him and challenging him, he can never be a really great character.
Right. And also striking that balance between, that ethical issues that the thief player will have when he's living in this world, and also having, as he progresses on his career, his world is going to get more complex using his abilities. So I hope we answered his question.
Well, let me add just a little bit to it. Now, when I mentioned this in my 15-part campaign, the adventure revolves around the player characters and their classes. Now, the players don't know that, but that's how I designed it. Therefore, for all the players, I will. Yeah, well. if they listen. They better not cheat because I got something for them. But no, I have adventures specifically designed for each character class, whether it be a cleric or whether it be a thief or what have you, so that their skills will be necessary for that particular part of the adventure, more so than, the rest of the other parts. That's how I involve the roles as far as separate classes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good way of doing it.
Cool. I don't know. I don't think thief classes are boring. I mean, whenever I play, I try to add traps and things for them to do, pickpocket situations, things that make a thief interesting. I don't like to just let thieves just stand there, backstab, I follow, backstab.
All right.
It's kind of boring.
I usually try to hang them, but that's just me.
Okay, so our next email comes from Buck Backup. I like that name, Buck Backup. His title of his email is Creature Feature New Frontiers. That sounds like a movie.
Yeah.
I am a future person writing from your past. So hello back to you, future Vince, Nick, and the rest. Okay. I am still catching up on past casts and up to number 46. Perhaps I should wait until I hear them all, but I thought I would register my opinion on the Creature Feature live play before my aging mind forgets. I like it. No, I'm kidding. I like it. Bring it back. Who cares if the show runs 2 hours? What am I going to listen to? News radio? The fun you have on the podcast comes through, and I find myself guessing along with the rest of your listeners. Bring back that bit of fun. Play on, strong as ever. A loyal listener, Buck Backup.
Wow.
No, we're not bringing it back. It took up too much time, and a lot of people complained about it.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people complained that they were just fast forwarding through it to get to the end.
I mean, we like to do it. I'm sure we enjoy doing it.
Oh yeah.
But we got to figure we have time constraints. So
and that's why we have the actual play podcast, which are on hold now, but you can still go back and listen to all 30 something episodes of mine and 10 episodes of Jason plus the RFI community podcast that was up for a while with about 10 episodes. You got all those different DM stylings there.
We generally try to keep within an hour and a half per show.
Try.
Approximately.
Yes. Try.
Approximately. So.
Okay, cool. Last question. This one is directed to Mr. Hickman.
Ooh.
So, Mr. Hickman, I want you to explain to us your reasoning on using steel as your money source in the Dragonlance campaign.
Well, I'd be delighted to tell you my reasoning behind using steel instead of gold behind the Dragonlance campaign.
Awesome.
Yeah. No, I remember actually at the time why, and that was because it seemed logical at the time.
The riddle of steel.
The riddle of steel. It seemed like the right thing to do. No, we actually did give some thought to this, and I thought, gold, especially in a universe which we had in Dragonlance that had just gone through such cataclysmic upheaval, gold itself is really kind of a lousy metal. It's soft, okay, which means it's really lousy in terms of its ability to be useful as a tool. And it occurred to me at the time that tools would actually be more valuable in a post-apocalyptic world than decoration would. And with a number of cities that had been destroyed and ruined, the actual worth of gold itself as a commodity would really be unimportant in that kind of a world. And so I thought, well, what would be important? Well, steel would be important in a world like that, because steel would be something that would last and have value and be strong and useful as a tool. As a source of money, however, I think it's kind of lousy. And having come to this brilliant realization in my youth that we should look at the true value of things and establishing steel pieces instead of as a replacement for gold pieces, I wasn't into more than 2 adventure modules before I completely regretted that decision. I mean, you know, a steel piece is equal to a gold piece. We keep having to explain the monetary system every time we turned around.
Yeah.
And people say, well, what is that in gold pieces? It was a translation problem, and so that was the original reasoning. Whether it was a good idea or not, I think maybe I would have changed that if I could go back.
Okay, cool. I was just wondering why you always had used that.
Yeah, that was the original thinking, was that steel would be more valuable as a metal than gold would have been. Like I say, gold has great conductive qualities, but you know that's not something you need in the medieval world. And beyond that, its primary ability is to maintain its luster and look pretty and be easily shaped. None of which I thought would be really terribly important to the people following the Cataclysm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. You have any sage advice you want to send us in? rfistaff@gmail.com, 570-865-4210. You two can call in and rant on Underdark with Full On Gamer against Nick. as we head into table matters.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, a fella knew how to judge a fireball on the fly and how far the cleric could push the undead he turned. I tell ya, with all these min-maxers and munchkins, metagame and power game, there's something missing that I'm here to learn ya. Now sit down and crack your book while I commence to teach you some.
Table manners.
All right, for table manners, this week we're going to be going into the Dragonlance Adventures book.
As you could have guessed, we're theming this podcast.
Yes, we got a whole theme here.
That's right, and as you could have guessed by bringing Tracy Hickman on, he's not just here because he wants to be. We pulled him in, we roped him in.
Yes.
I think he's still
Did
here.
we?
Yes, I'm still breathing.
Okay. Like, oh my gosh, we lost him.
Somewhat with trepidation, but yes. You know,
he's like, where are we
this
going?
Is like, this is where we go. This is, like, do you remember in episode 41 with, Return of the Archons, that part with it?
That's why I did that to you at Gen Con when I first shook your hand. I was like, how you doing? He's like, good. I'm like, I got this character I want to tell you about. And he's like, oh, great.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Oh, look at the time. I think I have a seminar I need to teach.
He laughed hysterical, and I'm like, nah, I'm just kidding. I had to do that to you because you say you always get that.
Well, it's true. I love talking to fans. I absolutely adore talking to fans and meeting them, and especially online. I've got the Facebook page, and I tweet from time to time, and I actually just opened a forum on my trhickman.com site so that I could just answer people's questions. You want to stop by and ask me a question. So I love talking to fans. But I'm sorry. The truth is that you telling me about your character's adventure, seriously, I was not there. I just and hearing about it is like watching bread rise. It's just not.
What was even funnier was the fact that Laura rolled her eyes and was like, "Oh, great," and she didn't realize I was joking at first.
But I do have something. Hopefully you can answer some questions on here, because our table manners segment is on, gnome device creation and tinker gnomes in general.
Absolutely. Some of my favorite people, which were created, by the way, by Jeff Grubb.
Oh, okay.
Well, so it's Jeff's fault.
We're going to blame Jeff. He's not here. Yeah, it's Jeff's fault. Because
Jeff, it's your fault if you're listening.
Well, Jeff was originally an engineer.
Oh, that explains why I'm reading through the rules here, and it made my head hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Did he make up the rules for the gnome device creation, or was that you?
I honestly don't remember.
Okay,
go on, Nick.
Well, let's just talk about like the tinker gnomes in general. They're interesting because they're like the complete antithesis of everything else in Kryn.
Yeah.
they're purely like, we are about technology. Whether or not it works.
Whether or not it works.
Whether or not that technology works. That remains to be seen.
There was a section, actually, I think we took out of the book that was I loved, which was the entrance to the Gnome volcano, to Nevermind.
Oh, that would have been interesting.
Oh yeah, it was. They had a tunnel that came into Nevermind, but it was dark, and so they determined they needed to light the tunnel. And so what they did is they ran steel rods down the length of the tunnel, and the end of those rods then were extended downward into the magma, which heated the rods up so that they would provide light within the tunnel. Well, this of course made the tunnel extremely toasty. Yeah, you could bake bread in it. So they decided, well, they had to cool the tunnel, so they brought piping down from the summit, and they would pipe down ice cold water into the tunnel and spray it so that it would cool the tunnel from the heat from the rods. This unfortunately flashed into like
steam.
Clouds and steam, and while you could, and so you couldn't actually see even though the tunnel was lit. So they built a large fan to blow the steam out of the tunnel.
Workarounds.
Yeah, they just keep working around, and I love that. But it was made it so loud you couldn't talk.
Pretty much in a nutshell, right there. I mean, that's how they are.
That's kind of funny, Nick and Tracy. You're saying that because World of Warcraft, the exact entrance to get into the gnome world looks just like how you described it.
Wow, how wonderful!
A tunnel with the strips heating it up, with the water spraying, giving you a cloud, with a fan blowing the smoke and the fog away so you can look through it and get through it. But when you just said that, I'm like, oh my god, did they totally steal that from you guys?
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, well, nothing you can do about it now. So.
But I like in the book how there's the different guilds of the Tinker Gnomes, and they deal with a certain quote-unquote science. You know, like hydraulics, aerodynamics, appliances.
Yes.
Imagine a Tinker Gnome blender.
Yeah.
And just how the idea of the Tinker Gnome class, how they want to make all these different inventions, and they use whatever they can to make it, hopefully work.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we did a killer breakfast in Mount Nevermind once. And the climax of this was the hydrogen dirigible at the top that cleverly used lightning rods for energy to drive the thing forward. And it wasn't a pretty ending, but it was a bright one and an exciting one.
Okay. Well, just about not only about the Tinker class, the Tinker Gnomes, and how their goal in life is to create new cool little devices, and hopefully they make they work. But the gnome devices themselves, there's an interesting, I guess you would call it a path on whenever a Tinker Gnome wants to create a device. And you start off by determining a device complexity and its size. And this is where the DM kind of starts with these questions. And there's a matrix in the back of the book that helps determine, through what the device can and cannot do at a general complexity level. There's a complexity level number that comes up with at the end, and it ranges from generally 1 to 20 for the complexity of the device. But there's various questions that the DM will ask the player who's playing the Tinker Gnome, like, will it do damage, protect from damage, or restrain another being? Does it move something or itself? Does it move something or itself any distance along the ground? Does it alter the environment? So on and so on. There's various questions that you ask. And which each of these questions, if it be a yes or no, you go on to the next question. If it's a yes, then there's maybe some modifiers that are involved with going with that known device complexity level table on page 118.
Yes.
And goes on from there. Then you have the final design modifiers. You have also, if you have more than one Tinker Gnome working on the device, this doesn't necessarily mean there'll be success.
No, it doesn't. And in fact, it can probably really hurt that.
Yeah, you know how like the old phrase, too many cooks can spoil the pot? This couldn't happen. You can have like 100 Tinker Gnomes working on the, one of the devices, I don't know, like the Blam Blower. and yes, there might be a modifier to help if it's successful or if it fails, maybe even explode. So there's still chances that the device might or might not work. Also, then you have to find out materials, how like different pulleys and screws and belts and gears and the prices in steel for those.
Of course.
Of course. And then you finally get on to building the device. And depending on the complexity, how long it takes to construct a device. Now, this could be a number of turns to a number of months, depending on the size and complexity of the device.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if I remember rightly, this was actually very much an attempt at addressing the issue of gnomes building something. And we wanted to encourage gnomes to build things. But it was also an attempt to quantify the notion of effects within the game. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, does it move? Does it do damage? Does it defend? Right. Does it restrain? And these are all essentially effects. When within the body of the game, we thought, what is the difference really between a Gauss rifle and a magic wand? If they both take one round to fire, if they both do, D12 damage, the actual effect within the context of the game is a matter of description rather than actually affecting the rolls in the game, the dice in the game. And so this was an attempt to quantify a construction that would build an effect, essentially.
Right.
And yeah, I kind of like the whole idea is, we need something. We're about to be attacked. We need something to defend ourselves. Let's go take 2 months and build it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's very gnome-like. Yeah.
Yes. Now there was a couple other things I remember reading through this I thought was very interesting, getting behind, Tinker Gnomes and the mentality. One is the larger the device or machine or wherever it may be, the less complex it is. Conversely, the smaller, the more complex. That's how Tinker Gnome engineering works.
Yeah, big is better. Absolutely.
Bigger is better. It's going to have less parts.
Yeah.
Generally. Sometimes.
Well, you look at something small, it has lots of parts, and so you need more.
And the second thing is, with Tinker Gnomes, the idea of mass producing a device is foreign to them.
Yeah, economy of scale does not exist for the gnomes.
Yeah, they don't understand, we made something really cool, let's mass produce it. They're like, we're going to make this one, and the next one, we're going to make it better. We're going to add this.
That's important, absolutely, because they're constantly trying to make things better.
Yes.
And the last thing isn't good enough. It always has to be better. Strangely enough, this is actually a problem that my Bruce Wayne character has in the Batman book that I'm writing. So does this mean that Bruce Wayne is a gnome? It may be.
Could be.
He's part gnome. Who knows?
Well, within the book, for example, he's looking at his new suit. One of the things that they told me that I could do is, or they wanted me to do, is to redesign the suit. And I thought, wow, I get to redesign Batman's suit. That was, my first thought, and then my second thought was, man, I shouldn't redesign Batman's suit. And I kind of realized within the context of writing this book, he's looking at his new suit that he's just used, and he's just breaking in, and he says, it's just not perfect yet. It's not right. Almost. But the next one will be better. And that's the way he feels about everything that he does. Is that the next thing will be a little bit better. And,
so he's constantly tinkering.
He's constantly tinkering. He's constantly improving something because it's never perfect for him, which is why he has so many different versions of a Batmobile, because it's never quite perfect.
He has 12 different versions of the Batcopter or something like that.
Well, yeah, actually, in the book, I have a fun moment when he's in the Batcave and he's looking at the current version of the Batmobile, and he finds that he finds the name Batmobile to be hilarious, because Batmobile is a name in the context of the book. Batmobile is a name that the media has put on his vehicle,
right?
And he doesn't call it a Batmobile. He finds that to be just a silly media affectation.
Right. Now,
by the way, in the book, one of his favorite versions, incarnations of a Batmobile, however, is I think, as he puts it, is a revision or a remodel of his father's 1957 Ford Futura.
Oh, jeez. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Batman is a tinker gnome.
Yeah.
He's just a little
apparently Batman is a tinker gnome, yeah.
So, I thought this was an interesting section. I read through it a couple of times. It took me a little while to figure it out because I'm nowhere near an engineer myself, but I understood a few things here. And I just think it really typifies how, if you're going to play the Dragonlance setting, how very dangerous tinker gnomes can be. If left to their own devices.
If left to their own, literally to their own devices.
Left on their own devices, because anybody else around might get hit by the blast. So, I don't know. Up to the rest of folks, would I use something in this? Would you use something like this in your campaign? If the device creation,
I definitely would use it, but I don't see this as a traveling class, like an adventure. I see this more of an NPC class for the party. I can't see a gnome running around with the party that's a tinkering gnome. You basically want to stay in one place to build something.
Yeah, especially when you talk about the construction times. It's quite long for some.
Just 5 more minutes while I fix this lever on this contraption I got here, or something I can hear every day. You want to kill him after a while.
Yes. Well, you would. Although at the same time, I think if you look at the character, the main character in How to Train Your Dragon, for example, he's something of a tinker as well. And I could see an outcast gnome who has been shunned by the rest of his gnome community because his stuff works.
Yeah.
And, now that could be an interesting traveling class from the standpoint that he would have the ability to deal with mechanical devices. And so in some ways, he would replace a lot of thief class functions within the game without having to deal with all of the moral ambiguity that the thief class provides.
What do you think, Will, about the tinker gnomes and the device creation?
I think that it's a very interesting concept. It definitely has given future authors and game creators, and they're using those ideas in future editions or other editions of D&D and everything. I'm not a big fan of gnomes. I think they're too short. I just don't care for gnomes too much. I prefer dwarves, and there's nothing wrong with, making dwarves tinkerers as well. But, this is Dragonlance, so I give gnomes their props. They're tough guys, especially if they're throwing those, gnome grenades and gnome bombs and everything. Brings some interesting role-playing aspects into it when a device goes off and blows up the party.
So I guess we'll leave it up to our listeners out there if they're familiar with the Tinker Gnome class and using the gnome device creation. Let us know at rfistaff@gmail.com or head over to osrgaming.org to the forums there and let us know what you think, or if you have some really funny, interesting stories about Tinker Gnomes and what they tried to create. So I guess with that, we'll head on to game mechanics.
Oh man, what the heck is that?
Stand aside, you fool! I have a spell that will work here!
What do you mean I can't hit with that? Oh, right, fine. Show it to me in the book.
Welcome to Game Mechanics.
Oh, you want me to start?
Yes, please.
Oh, no, it's all good. No, as I was looking over some of the things, we was going to talk about the a character alignment chart. In the world of Dragonlance, this chart is pretty much set up on the premise that when a player creates a character for Dragonlance, they will be assigning that character an alignment based on its moral turpitude. For example, the good, neutral, or evil aspect. Unlike regular first edition D&D, when a player assigns an alignment to a character, that character will act within the scope of that alignment to the best of that player's ability. However, in the Kryn setting, the actions of that player will dictate the alignment of that character as it progresses in adventures and so on. So basically, as I studied this and read this, I remember this when I used to run the DL1 series all the way up to DL16. I think the book came out a little bit after. I'm not sure. I can't remember after all these years and everything. There's a chart there where the DM will keep track of the moral alignment, based on the player's actions. This is very important because, for example, in first edition AD&D, if you have a paladin that commits a transgression, it's an automatic, they lose their abilities and powers and, their alignment changes until they repent. In this case here, let's say a player wants to play a Knight of Solamnia or what have you, or become a Solamnic Knight with a lawful good alignment.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The player will possibly make some, transgressions that are normally not lawful good. Whereas then the DM will keep track of those decisions and then penalize them on the chart. Like if they do something that's like more neutral, their actions are more neutral instead of good, they'll penalize them a couple ticks. Now what that will do in the chart is that's going to push the alignment to lawful neutral. But before he hits that lawful neutral mark, he's going to hit a transition area. The moment that happens, that's when the bad things happen to these characters. For some characters, it's a lot worse than others. A prime example is for the Knights of Solamnia, they're going to lose their abilities. Their fall from grace will occur. They lose all their powers, and they become simple fighters until they redeem themselves. In the case of a Solamnic Knight character, they would have to do good things to backtrack back up to that lawful good area or to that good area, and then hopefully through that experience points gain their levels back. Now, I wasn't really certain there, Mr. Hickman. I didn't see anything. Are these levels are permanently lost, or are they gained back, via experience? It wasn't really clear on that. So that would be a DM rule. What do y'all think?
I think neutral, I think that they'd come back. The intention, I think, here was to address the idea prevalent at the time. People say, "Well, my character's lawful good," and then they would go out and do neutral stuff, or they do evil stuff.
Yeah,
right.
And or I'm lawful, and they'd get all chaotic in their actions, and and it was an attempt, I think, within the body of the rules set to deal with the difference between what the character, what they said the character was, and how the player was playing the character, and to try to keep them, at least within the body of who they were, or who they had said that they were. At the time, I believed that it made for more interesting play if you could enforce that. I've become less of an enforcer these days than I think I was in my youth. I do still like the idea of judging a character's alignment based on the player's actions rather than what is written on the sheet. And I think that makes more sense. I think it makes for better play, and more interesting characters. I was playing a paladin character in a neighbor's campaign for a time, and I had gone to the referee and I had said to the DM, "Look, I'm a paladin. I'm lawful good. I'm going to play this paladin lawful good." But I'll tell you right now, I think it's rude. My character believes that it's rude to check the alignment of the other members of the party unless they do something overtly wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a result, we ended up going into this castle, this tower, with a whole party full of neutral evils and thieves and cutthroats, led by this paladin.
Interesting.
And it made for great play. What happened? The scenario was that this tower had been once belonged to a good man and had been taken over by this evil wizard. And as a consequence of this, I once refused to allow the rest of my party members to break down a door, because the door was the property of a good man, and the wanton destruction of this man's property seemed wrong to me. As a result of this, they had a tendency to send me ahead scouting quite a bit.
They sent the paladin scouting. How
Oh, Lord. That's funny.
Well, and actually, at one point then, they sent me left when they turned right, and they came across a couple of bugbears, and we had this goblin, or we had a gnome character that was with us, a player character that was with us, who could speak bugbear. And they were in the middle of parley over this whole thing, and the gnome was saying, "Okay, look, guys, we don't really want to fight you. We don't want to have a lot of trouble here. We're not interested in the treasure you're guarding. We're looking for something bigger. Just tell us where it is. We'll walk away. Everything is going to be just fine between us." It was about this time when the bugbears were considering this offer that I returned to the party.
Oops.
And for me, it was very simple. Bugbears, evil, kill. So I pull out my sword and I'm charging to the front of the party. And this gal that was playing this gnome saw me coming. She only had a moment to think about it, and she turned her character around. This gnome turned around, held up his little arms, and said to the paladin who was charging, "No, stop, they want to repent."
Quick.
Okay.
I was just imagining where the bugbear is probably going to say, "Yes, the treasures stab." That's what I was waiting for.
Well, and I stopped. I said, I didn't speak bugbear, of course, and so I told the gnome, I said, "Tell these vile creatures, if they'll repent, then I will spare their lives." And so this gal who was playing the gnome turned back to the bugbears, and in bugbear, of course, said, "Okay, look, you're going to tell us where the treasure is, or do I sick him on you?" And so, to this day, my paladin character believes that the bugbears repented of their evil ways and went on their way.
Interesting. That does make for interesting play.
It can make for better play, but you have to have people who are used to that kind of thing. I've always felt that alignment needs to be based on action rather than some arbitrary assignment.
Yes, truly. I truly agree with that. That's very important, because a lot of people, well, I say a lot of people, a lot of players that I noticed that, not capable of understanding, the scope of alignment playing it within the scope, whereas, like you said, judging by their actions. A DM will say, well, I know what lawful good is. And, another player, says, well, I know what lawful good is. And then when they start doing actions, and then it comes to the point where the player will say, well, this is a lawful good thing. Why are you penalizing me? Well, to me, that is not a lawful good action. So it makes for interesting role playing. It makes for some interesting, conversations between the players. And I think alignment would have to be spelled out as much as possible, and the chart as well.
Yeah.
I think that the players, though, have to understand the transition area, because when the alignment shifts into those two transition areas between good and neutral and evil, that's when they really need to know, because that's when the DM will punish them. Per the rules and everything. For example, like both the wizard and the cleric will 10% of their spells are going to fail. You roll percentile dice. If you roll below 10, your spell fails. The cleric, they will still lose their 2 levels. The magic user will, of course, by the time it changes to another alignment, they get a new robe color and so on and so on. So players have to pretty much decide, like, what kind of alignment do I want, and what am I good at playing? Because I really don't want to get punished by the DM. The last thing you need is a cure critical spell to go off to heal the paladin that's fixing to die from the bugbears, and then he rolls a 2, and the spell failed, Dead paladin.
Well, yeah, exactly. Although like I say, I have changed and become, I guess, a kinder and gentler DM over the years. Although, considering the Killer Breakfast events that I run, that people may not quite buy into that. But I'm less concerned anymore with punishing players than I am with inspiring them.
Right.
And I would if I were to use a system like this, it would be to inspire players to better play rather than to impose penalties on the players. One of the things that Howard Taylor, who's the schlock mercenary artist online, always says about improv is that the answer to any question needs to be yes and. And I think that's probably the best, a really good approach for DMs as well in terms of running their games and their relationship to the game mechanics.
I do think that if you want to use this outside of the Dragonlance Adventures book, if you weren't going to run a setting in Kryn, I know, God forbid, Tracy, that someone would do that, but
oh, please, by all means.
I think that this would work in a campaign if you were going to do this from the very beginning. I don't think this is something you can do right in the middle of a campaign, and showing that in your campaign world, yes, if you're going to, within the alignment system of this particular game, there is a system to where you can, if you fall off alignment, certain things are going to happen, and I, as a DM, can track that. And I think that shows that also that there's certain consequences for your actions based upon on your alignment. If you fall that morality of your alignment, I guess you might want to call that. So
I agree totally that this can, this is a great system or a great set of rules for Ravenloft. And I say this not from the module perspective, but for the campaign, especially when characters are making their decisions. And this gives the Dark Powers more an opportunity to actually, influence those characters to become more evil or what have you, to escape from that original alignment. I mean, this is great. I think this is a great tool for the Ravenloft campaign. Yes, sir. That's exactly what this is, right?
We have cookies.
Yes. But, the downside that I see, for example, let's say it was, a regular fighter. That's not like a Solamnic Knight who's lawful good, which is almost like a Paladin Cavalier, comparison there. But if it's a regular fighter, and let's say they go into that transition from good to neutral or neutral to evil or evil back to neutral, their only punishment, again, is it's a -1 to hit opponent and then +1 to their own armor class. And I look at this and I'm like, that ain't really much of a punishment.
No.
It really isn't.
No, it isn't. I guess it's up to the DM to maybe make enforce maybe a stricter penalty.
Right, because I tell you, the clerics and the magic users suffer the most because they lose 2 experience levels. Mm-hmm. So then right then again, just like Mr. Hickman said, you want them to raise the quality of playing. You want to, raise the standard, and that's very important. Yes, I agree with that totally.
It's a good system. I think it's really interesting to do, but I wouldn't use it because I don't like keeping track of things like that. Too much going on as a DM.
It is busy.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the other thing I think I've kind of changed over the years, at least in my own mind, is to get away from busy and to get back to having fun. When we did the XDM game, for example, well, no, it's all right. When we did XDM, Extreme Dungeon Master. Extreme. When we did
every time you're going to say that, we're going to have to do that.
I know, you're going to have to do that. It's true.
I was gonna stand behind him in this booth every time someone said I love XDM. I was going to go Extreme. But I figured he would have punched me in the head after about 15 minutes. So.
No, but one of the things we did is we put in a game. We put in our own role-playing game, and we called it the XD20 system. And because it's a role-playing game, we have to have a basic and an advanced version. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the basic version, the character sheet has my stat.
Yes, I love that. One stat.
That's who you are. You're like 5, and that's all you get. And that's it takes it way down to the most basic level. Advanced, hey, we'll give you 3 stats, but the whole idea was to get away from all of the busy work and get back to the mental exercise of having a good time and weaving a story together. So I look back on what we did in those days and this in particular. And while the theory I think is basically correct, I think that if I were to do this now, it would be the DM would say, you're a knight of Solamnia here. You've been carousing for 3 weeks. I'm thinking that you aren't anymore. Okay.
Oh, one thing that made me laugh was the XDM character sheet for basic was just like my name, my stat, my description, and that's like all it was on the page. It's just like you look at that sheet and you look at like say 4th edition, and you're like, whoa.
Oh, hey.
Well, seriously, I had a guy in New Zealand who bought this book, and who wrote to me and said, "This is all we play anymore, is XDM." Because at first they took out their 4th edition character sheets, and they were spending hours trying to just get a character sheet. And then they looked at my game, and it was like, oh, there's my stat. Okay, let's play. and they loved that idea that you could just get into it and have a good time. So I actually have a lot of people today who write to us in the XDM forums and the XDM website who tell us, you know what? This is what I play now because this is fun. This doesn't eat up my life. This is a good time, and this is what I remember gaming.
That's great.
That's right. It's perfect if you want to just play.
Yep. That's it. That's my thoughts exactly when you said, Nick, there the KISS method. That's awesome. I love the KISS, but it's simple. Depends on the DM.
That's true.
But then again, I don't let alignment ever be a straitjacket. And like I said, this is a very simple rule here, or a simple set of rules here concerning the alignment. I think it's very simple. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's very convoluted and very difficult to maintain. Good Lord, I mean, we're DMs. We've been doing it forever. So something like this just comes natural to me as a long-time player and DM of 36 years. I like the system. I think it works fine. It keeps players on the edge. And, hey, sometimes they need that.
Yep.
Besides, y'all know how it is in 1st edition. I mean, you make an alignment issue, you lose a level for each, shift down. So if you go from lawful good to lawful neutral, that's 1 level. And lawful good to lawful evil, that's 2 levels. And it just keeps on going. So I like how they do this transition method here with Dragonlance. I think it's a very simple tool. I think it will work. And as a matter of fact, since we discussed it, I'm going to look into implementing it in my Ravenloft campaign.
Cool. Something I definitely would like to see someone design is a Ravenloft for Osric, so we can just see what they have come up with. I know it'd be hard to do it with all the copyrights and everything, but it'd be interesting to see. What do you think?
Sure.
Well, I think that Ravenloft is a trademark of Wizards of the Coast. Or is that TSR? No, wait a minute. Hasbro. Yeah, okay, it's somebody.
Who are they?
What I do know is it's not mine, and so whatever they decide to do with it, hey, good for them.
How about like Extreme Ravenloft? Or?
Extreme Ravenloft. Yes.
What's cool is I was reading on your forums for Extreme Dungeon Mastery Extreme, and
now I'm picturing like liches like on bikes jumping into rivers.
yeah, there's like people made up things for Extreme Dungeon Mastery. So if you want a specific setting and you just feel like being imaginative, you can go to his forums and there's people like made up like robot history ones and all these neat little things. And I'm like, wow, they should just like print these things out and like sell them alongside the book. I mean, it'd be so much fun to see all these things.
Yeah, I think my favorite story from Extreme Dungeon Mastery.
Extreme.
Thank you. And I think my favorite story was actually this person who wrote in and said that a coworker of theirs had asked them about role playing and what role playing was about. And he said, "Well, I'll run you a game." Well, you know, I said, "Here, I tell you what." And he sat down, he busted out his XDM book. He says, "What do you want to play a game about?" And she said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "Well, what do you have at the house?" He said, "I've got cats." And so he instantly created this RPG about her cats and all of the things that they would have to problem solve. How do they get up onto the counter? How do they get to the milk here? And then a burglar came into the house. And how would the cats defend their milk against the burglar, right? And because the system was so simple, they could go ahead and role play all of this, and it absolutely opened up this woman's eyes to what this was all about, and got her into the game. So yeah, I love the idea of simple anymore.
Okay, cool. So let's throw it out there for people. If you use the character alignment tracking system, or you've come up with your own system, which you'd like to see, give us a shout out, rfistaff@gmail.com, and we'll head into our next segment.
As the secret portal yields to your efforts, you stand amazed at a vision from the most fevered dreams of avarice. Before you lies the Dragon's Horde.
So for Dragon's Hordes tonight, we're going to be talking about, we have to talk about this without, talking about Dragonlance.
Dragonlance?
Yeah, Dragon Armor.
Yeah.
How could you not talk about Dragon Armor and Dragonlance?
Right.
So Dragon Armor, pretty much, this armor is been used by the Queen of Darkness throughout many ages of Corinth. It consists of padded tunic and leggings with a plate mail, breastplate, and shoulder of plates. Basically, this is a custom-fitted armor that is made for a certain person, and no one else can use it. If they try to use it, they suffer a penalty to using the armor.
Mm.
Where
it's all the spikes on it. It makes it hard.
Is that what it is? I was trying to figure out what exactly about it is because the dragon plates are hard to manufacture.
Yeah. See, well, you get hung up on stuff all the time, and you can get cut by it. It's pretty hard.
Now, it could be. Is it based off of just one type of dragon plate, or could be any dragon color, or because I don't really see anything about what colors of dragons?
No, I think actually it's custom fitted armor, and as I recall, Larry Elmore is the armorer. He's the one who actually came up with the armor.
Right. He said you guys saying it's equivalent to a scale mail plus 2 armor.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's probably about right.
And you subtract 1d6 points from any cold-based attacks or damage.
Yes.
Now, I wonder if you can take different plates of dragon and put it on the armor and change it up a bit. Is that maybe the original thought process in that armor?
No, I don't think so. I think that the armor is designed to work as a piece.
Okay.
And because of that, interchanging pieces isn't going to actually help you at all with that. The importance in armor is actually how it all moves together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's and I think with the dragon armor, that's the case here.
Nick, have you ever used this dragon armor?
I haven't, but you know what? I'm considering it. And now, this dragon armor, it's not made of the scales of a dragon, is it? No?
It doesn't really say.
Now, I'm wondering if you can make something like that, just kind of like modify it to where, you can make it out of dragon scales, and thus whatever dragon it's made out of, the skin, it's
because we've all. You have to admit, we've all done that in the past. I mean, who hasn't, after killing their first dragon, tried to pull the plates off the dragon and try to make armor out of it as a trophy or shield?
Oh, I got players that use everything, including the spleen of a dragon.
The spleen of the dragon?
They use everything.
I think there's a whole adventure there. We could do Spleen of the Dragon. It would be an interesting.
Hey, Tracy, there's your next book, Spleen of the Dragon.
It could be Spleen of the Dragon. I've used dragons, every other part of a dragon in a title. I suppose I could use Spleen of a Dragon.
There we go. You heard it here first, folks. Tracy Hickman's new book. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, it sounds better than pancreas.
Yeah.
So that's too wordy.
It is. It's too wordy. It's too complicated.
Spleen. It just goes.
Spleen. It works very well.
I have players that they use every single part of the dragon. The teeth, the bones, the blood, you name it. They kill a dragon. That thing is not going to waste.
Jeez. Well, it's a scale mail armor, this armor, so I would just, when I envision this armor, I envision it being equivalent of whatever dragon is there for the time being.
And the reason why there is the cold bonus on the armor is because the armor is designed to keep the bearer warm. Because it's usually used in flight, and at altitude it gets cold up there.
Right.
This whole entire book is a great little book, The Dragonlance Adventures. I suggest anyone picking it up to use it for their campaign. Dragonlance is a good setting. In fact, I played the heck out of this book that so much the orange spine is broken on my copy. Much like all the orange spines did when they fell apart. Will, you were telling me before the podcast you had an interesting copy of the book?
Yeah, this is kind of unusual because I haven't opened this book in a number of years, and I just forgot completely about it. But when I opened it up just to get comfortable and remembering everything, I noticed that the entire book is upside down. The contents are upside down. The whole thing is upside down. So I'm reading the book upside down, and someone says, like, what are you doing? I said, I'm reading this book here. And he said, well, why is it upside down? And I said, oh, no, let me show you. And I guess it was some flaw. It was a bad print or just an unusual mistake. That was kind of weird.
I wouldn't
That's
doubt
kind of
it.
cool, actually.
Yeah.
That's a collector's item.
Yeah, I'm probably going to take a picture of it and show you all later on. It's funny.
That'd be something to definitely hold on to, because I'd like to have something like that. I've heard of that, but I've never actually seen of the upside-down books.
Oh, then I have to take some pictures of some other books I have. You'll be interested in some of those things that happen.
Well, there was quite a few anomalies that came out of TSR back then, so that's the best word I could describe for it.
Like, what was it, that print of the DMG where it had actually several pages of the monster manual in it.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of things that they did, and I don't know what the printing press did back then. I guess back when they did printing, they were all doing everything by hand. It wasn't factory done.
No, it was factory done. In fact, one of the, if I remember correctly, reading through the history of TSR, one of the really big coups that Gary made was when he got Random House to do the printing. Well, Random House is not, a small print company. So
it's
he
huge.
got, I might be wrong on this. I thought I remember reading about it that it was like a friend of a friend kind of thing. Like he heard through somebody else that they knew somebody at Random House, and they were able to arrange it that TSR was able to publish their books, their modules, what have you, through Random House, and one of the reasons why they got some pretty good distribution on their stuff too.
Awesome. I don't know. I know a lot of the Orange Spine books fell apart really easily.
Yeah. Like
Including
the
mine.
Arcana book.
Yeah. But the Extreme Dungeon Mastery book, that does not fall apart.
Extra extreme.
That book does not fall apart, and I love the cover of that book.
Actually, the book itself was physically designed to be mindful and in remembrance of the early books.
Yes.
The paper quality itself was chosen specifically so that it would feel like a first edition book.
Oh, I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah, it's
now
true.
I have to get one.
Oh, Nick, definitely pick one up. I mean, if you're not going to play it, it's just like, how do I describe the read of the book? Just goes so nicely that it's a book with rules, but they don't take the rule like you look at the first edition players books, and it's just like, this is what you do, blah blah blah. When Tracy and his son wrote the book, it's like, this is what you do, and then like below it, there's like comments like, you don't really have to do this if you don't want to. Duh. It's really good. I read the whole thing in one night because it was so like engrossing as far as just to read the comments that they wrote after what they wrote for the rules.
Well, now I'm definitely gonna get one.
Yeah, I've definitely got to give you guys props on that, Tracy.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's a fun read, and we had a blast doing it. I love the section on role playing down since the time of Socrates. I think it's I love the idea of the Christians versus Lions LARP not working out as well as they hoped.
No,
that didn't work out too well.
One section I liked, but I didn't understand the magician section.
Yeah, the magic section. Well, my son is a professional magician.
Right,
and,
I got that part.
And he loves the idea of like conveying of the idea of a DM being able to do magic in the game. And some of it's a bit convoluted, but yeah, I mean, it actually has a pretty good section. If you remember from Labyrinth, for example, when the Goblin King is juggling the ball between his hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, it explains in this book how to do that.
Right.
And it's, and so the idea that you could sit down with a DM and all of a sudden he'd be able to like perform the magic in the game was something that he wanted to include, the performance aspect that he wanted to include in there. Yeah, there is a section in the book on pyrotechnics.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I like you guys keep commenting on the smoke machine throughout the book. Where's the smoke
absolutely.
machine?
Got it. And lasers, and smoke machines. Both very important. But if I may, I can find for you actually my favorite section, which is out of the pyrotechnics section of that book.
That is a good section, that book.
Yeah, it is, and it's. Let's see if I've got it here handy at all. And because XDM is also available on Kindles, strangely enough.
Wow.
How did that work out? I know you can't. Did the pictures come out with it too, or just straight up text?
No, the pictures actually did come out, and because I did the translation.
It's like a slight laugh to Kindle or something. I don't know.
Well, it's just that so many people, I think, when they make a Kindle book, they make it look just ugly.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that our book looked good on a Kindle, so we did. We included a lot of the art, and it's got. Well, let's see here. Oh yes, okay. Here we are. This was the section I was going to read to you. There are many sections in the book. In this arson section, okay. Yeah. Well, I think of it as the arson section. It's the pyrotechnics section. The giant, incredible fireball, aka Homeland Security watch list, is one of them. But this is the last. This is the Armageddon Hellstorm, aka NSA Black Ops hit list. And it says, if I may read, have you ever been running a game for your friends and thought, boy, I could really use a realistic volcano inferno that engulfs an entire city block in a highly concussive fireball? That would be the perfect end for tonight's adventure. Well, of course you have. Who hasn't? So our solution to the pressing question is the Armageddon Hellstorm display. Here is the simplest way to build one out of materials you probably have around your own home. First, obtain a large microwave-safe casserole dish. Second, you must blank. And you have to understand this section was heavily redacted, okay? Third, after your plane lands, you will cross the border into blank. There you will find some Blankians. When you talk to the Blankians, make sure to ask for the weapons grade blank and not the blank that they try to pass off as the real blank. Next, with infinite care, you gently blank without blanking the delicate blank, blank, blank at a minimum distance of 5 miles. There you go.
That's good. That's good.
The best part about the whole extreme dungeon mastery,
Extreme.
thank you, is that players don't level the DM levels.
Interesting.
Speaking of which, Tracy, I haven't got my my level improvement.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. You all gain a level.
Oh, thank you.
Sweet. Dun, dun, dun.
Can I be like the high dungeon mastery arc something or other? Like you guys?
I think so. It's described in there exactly what the levels mean. I can't remember offhand what all those levels are, but
like the super secret levels that only Tracy and Tracy, you and.
Well, it's really impossible to get it because every time anybody approaches it, we just make up new levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun, actually. The book's a lot of fun. It's a great read, but more than that, it's the intention of the book actually is to help any role-playing game, and in fact, it will improve the play in anybody's role-playing game, whatever they're playing. So it's something that I recommend. It is very old school, and for that reason, I hope a lot of people get a lot of joy out of it.
Definitely. All right, I think that's going to wrap the show up for tonight.
Yeah.
Nice hour-and-a-half show there for you folks.
Yeah.
Talking about Dragonlance, we'd like to thank Tracy Hickman for joining us tonight.
Glad to be here, and thank you for having me on.
Always a joy having you on, Tracy.
Thank you. I hope everybody will come visit the Facebook page. If you want to know how to write, come to scribesforge.com, and we'll be happy to give you the benefit of our 30 years worth of game writing and novel writing experience. And I have to make one plug.
Go ahead.
Which is for my wife's project.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You told me about this. Go ahead.
Yeah, my wife is doing a cookbook. And if you go to Baking Outside the Box, what a wonderful name, bakingoutsidethebox.com, and find out all about it and how she's raising her money on Kickstarter to make that project happen. So, yeah, by all means, come take a look at that as well.
That's awesome.
They have like gaming cookies, like Cobalt.
Absolutely. Oh, listen, I got to tell you, she made yesterday. The thing about this book that is so cool is that it's a system. Okay.
A cooking system. Okay.
A cooking system. What you have is it's a way of replacing boxed mixes, so that you can actually use this system that she has. You make basic mixes from this system, and then you use those to make anything, any kind of baked goods. And it's fast and it's fun and it's frugal because it's inexpensive. You can do it for like a fraction of the cost, right? So the other day, and one of the cool things about this is that you can use her system to translate existing scratch recipes into this like easy bake for grown-ups that she's made. So the other day she said, wow, I would really like some pumpkin muffins. I wonder how you do pumpkin muffins. So she went into the kitchen, she pulled out her materials, and using her method, she made these pumpkin muffins. And they were pumpkin muffins with I think they have pecans in them and white chocolate. And they had a cookie, they had a graham cracker crumble crust on top of them.
I'm getting on a plane now.
Oh, they were amazing. In fact, if you go to our Facebook page, you can see them because she posted them. there in the recipe form.
Facebook.com slash...
I want one.
What is it? Facebook.com slash outside the box or cooking outside the box?
I've got it here. It's got to be here somewhere. Here. Oh, here, there it is. Just a second.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually, if you go to bakingoutsidethebox.com, it's the first recipe that's on there.
Okay, bakingoutsidethebox.com. Okay.
Yeah, cool. And it's the first recipe that's there. And you can see my beautiful wife there in her little video talking about her system. But, whoa, they were unbelievably good. She must be eaten at every gaming table.
Okay.
Well, I hope there's some recipes for burnt, because everything I cook is burnt.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's wrap up the show. Say goodnight to everyone. Keep it original. Keep it old school.
Good night to everyone.
And good night, everybody.
Roll for initiative.